Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're listening, I bet you're looking to get better at English at home. And I'm sure you've seen just how much information is out there.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It can be so overwhelming. So we did a deep dive into some of that material to pull out some of the most useful stuff.
Definitely practical strategies that anyone can use.
Yeah. So let's start with goal setting.
Right. Super important.
It really is.
Just like anything you want to achieve,
Like you've got to have a plan.
you have to have a plan. If you're going on a road trip, you need to know where you're going. So,
Absolutely.
what are your goals with English?
Yeah. What do you want to get out of this whole thing?
Do you want to be able to have more vocabulary? Do you want to...
Impress your friends, right?
Yeah, exactly. Impress your friends or be able to, get your point across better.
Yeah.
Maybe it's pronunciation.
Right.
Are you struggling with certain sounds or,
Oh, yeah.
just want to be understood more clearly. Or maybe grammar is your big thing.
Yeah, that could be a tough one.
Oh, yeah.
No.
All those little rules and...
Have tenses.
Exactly.
Right.
Lots of things to think about. So it can be overwhelming to think, I want to do all of these things.
Right, yeah, you want to do vocabulary and grammar and
Nice.
pronunciation and all that.
So it's really good to kind of break it down and pick one thing.
Yeah, one thing to focus on. Just like with fitness, if you're trying to get
You're sure.
in shape, you don't go to the gym.
You don't do everything at once.
You don't try to do every exercise, right?
Exactly.
Pick something.
Exactly. You focus on one thing,
Yeah,
make it a habit, and then you can move on to the next thing. So
totally.
yeah.
Yeah, so like this week, I'm going to learn 10 new verbs.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to work on this sound.
Exactly. And those small things add up over time.
Mhm.
Like,
Consistency is key.
exactly.
It's all about that.
It is.
Yeah. Okay, so now that we've got our goals figured out, let's talk about turning your home into this like English-speaking zone.
Yes. I love that. Creating that immersive environment at home.
Yeah. Like how can we do that?
So one of the things that the sources really emphasize
Yeah.
was just changing the language on all of your devices.
Oh, really? Just like your phone and stuff?
Exactly. Your
Yeah.
phone, computer, even your social media. Just
Yeah.
switch it all to English. And it sounds so basic,
Yeah.
but it's actually a really good way to just like constantly be seeing
Right. It's all around
the
you.
language. Yeah, just like little reminders throughout your day.
Yeah. I did that when I was learning Spanish and
Oh, nice.
it really helped.
Yeah,
Yeah, it just kind of gets in your brain.
it gets in your brain, exactly.
Yeah.
And then you start thinking in that language a little bit more too.
Yeah. Yeah. You get so used to seeing it
Exactly.
and like the sentence structures and things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's a great one. And then another thing you can do is think about putting little sticky notes around your house with English words on them. So,
Yeah.
like put one on the refrigerator that says refrigerator or
It's more like apple on the apple.
apple on the apple. Exactly. So as you're going about your day,
It's just there.
it's just there. You're just passively learning
Yeah.
vocabulary. And it's kind of fun.
Yeah, that is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good way to do it. Okay, so we've got our goals. We've got our home environment all set up.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's talk about one of my favorite things, reading.
Yes. Reading is a fantastic way to improve your English.
It is. It's so good.
And, a lot of people might think, oh, I have to like read really complicated books or
Right.
like classic literature.
Yeah. And it's like Shakespeare right off the bat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But what the sources really emphasized was that you can just start with whatever
Right, wherever you like.
you enjoy, Think about your hobbies.
Yeah.
And are there any blogs you can find in English
Oh, yeah.
about those hobbies? Or,
If you're into cooking, like find some recipes in English.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or if you're into, I don't know, sports or whatever it is,
Yeah.
find something that you enjoy reading.
Right.
Because the more you enjoy it,
The more you'll do it.
the more you'll do it.
Right.
Exactly. So
Right.
yeah, it could be anything from like simple news articles
Yeah.
to graded readers, which are books that are specifically written for English language learners,
Oh,
to even like graphic novels. Like those can be a fun way to get into it too.
yeah. Yeah. It doesn't have to be super serious and boring.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Okay, so reading is great, but it's sort of a
Yeah.
passive activity.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. And to really master the language, you need to actually start speaking it.
Right. So how do we get over that fear of
Yeah.
speaking? Because a lot of people are so,
I know. It can be really scary. But honestly, one of the biggest things
yeah.
is just realizing that like making mistakes
Or what's a part of it?
is part of the process.
Yeah.
Everyone makes mistakes when they're learning a language. And, nobody learned to walk without falling down a few times, right?
Exactly.
So it's okay to make mistakes. The important thing is to just keep practicing
Just keep trying.
Keep trying, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So how can we do that if we're at home and maybe we don't have anyone to talk to?
Yeah, so one of the things you can do is actually just talk to yourself.
Really?
Yes, talk to yourself in English.
Oh,
like literally
narrate your day.
Narrate your day as you're cooking dinner. You know, be like, okay, now I'm chopping the vegetables. Now I'm putting them in the pot.
Okay.
Like, just talk to yourself and explain what you're doing.
I mean, that makes sense.
It does. It might feel a little silly at first.
Yeah.
But it's actually a really good way to just get comfortable.
Yeah, just get those words out.
Get the words out, exactly. And nobody's listening.
Right. Yeah, you're at home.
It's your own private practice time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then another thing you can do is record yourself
Oh, yeah.
speaking. So,
That's a good idea.
yeah. Because then you can hear how you sound and
Right, and then you can
knock your progress.
hear where you need to improve.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Okay, so you're speaking. We're also got to
Yes.
work on listening.
Listening, yes. That is so important. And the sources really emphasize that too.
Yeah.
Because not only does it help you understand what other people are saying,
Right.
but it also helps you get a feel for the rhythm of the language.
Oh, that's a good point.
The intonation, the pronunciation,
Yeah.
you know.
Like how to make it sound natural.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of great ways to practice listening at home.
Oh, like what?
Podcasts are a fantastic one.
Oh, podcasts are great.
They are great because you can find a podcast on literally any topic.
Yeah, anything you're into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of podcasts are actually made
Specifically for learning.
specifically for English language learners. So they'll speak a little slower. They might explain some of the vocabulary.
That's good. That's helpful.
And those are a great way to get started.
Awesome. Okay, so podcasts. What about TV and movies?
Oh, TV and movies are another great one. It's like you're getting immersive listening practice while also
Being entertained.
being entertained.
Cool.
Yeah. And you can start with subtitles
Okay.
in your native language, and then gradually you can switch to English subtitles.
Right.
And eventually you might even be able to
Turn them off.
turn them off. Yeah.
Yeah, and just understand.
Yeah. I love watching movies with the subtitles on.
Yeah, it's fine.
And then I try to like listen and see if I can understand.
It's a little challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then even music
Oh, yeah.
can be a good way to practice listening.
Okay.
Pay attention to the lyrics.
Right.
Try to sing along.
Uh-huh.
And you'll start to pick up
Yeah.
new phrases and vocabulary that way too.
Totally. Okay, so we've talked about reading, we've talked about speaking, we've talked about listening.
Let's talk about the last of the big four here.
Writing.
Writing.
Yeah,
Yeah. Writing is really important.
it is.
It really helps you solidify all of that knowledge that you're getting from reading and listening and speaking.
Yeah.
When you write, you have to think more carefully
Yeah.
about grammar. You have to think more carefully about vocabulary.
Yeah.
So it's a really good way to just kind of like put it all together.
Right, to like process it all.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, when I was learning Spanish,
Uh-huh.
I kept a little journal
Oh, nice.
and I would just write in
Yeah.
it every day. Even if it was just like a couple of sentences.
That's great.
Yeah, it really helped.
Yeah. And that's what the sources emphasize, is that it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
this big, long,
Yeah.
essay every day.
Right.
Even
No.
just a few sentences
No.
can make a difference.
Okay.
So think about, can you write a quick email to a friend in English?
Oh, yeah.
Can
Yeah,
you?
that's a good idea.
Yeah. Or like a comment on a video.
A comment on a video, exactly.
Yeah.
Or like a post on social media. Or,
Right.
just jot down a couple
Right. In a notebook.
sentences in a notebook. Yeah, about your day or. Exactly. Just
yeah.
anything to get those
To get the writing.
writing muscles working.
Yeah.
And there are also a lot of online communities.
Oh, yeah.
Where you can practice writing with other people.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So you can get feedback.
Yeah.
And you can kind of
Yeah, that's nice.
bounce ideas off of each other.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like having a pen pal.
Exactly.
Yeah. I like that. Okay. So we've covered writing. Now,
Yes.
another big one is vocabulary.
Vocabulary. Oh, yeah.
Let's get the building blocks of the whole thing.
It is. And we've all had that experience
Yeah.
where we're reading something in English or listening to something
Right.
and we come across a word and we're just like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, it's so frustrating.
It's so frustrating.
And you got to stop and look it up.
Exactly. And it can really like break your flow.
Yeah, it totally does.
Yeah. But building vocabulary doesn't have to be a chore.
So how do we do that?
So one of the best techniques,
Okay.
and this one has stood the test of time, is using flashcards.
Oh, flashcards.
Flashcards, yeah. You can make your own with just like index cards, or you can use one of the many digital flashcard apps.
Yeah, there's tons of apps out there.
Tons of apps.
Yeah. Which you prefer?
I actually like the digital ones because they often have audio pronunciation.
Well, that's good.
So you can hear how the word is pronounced.
Okay.
And then they also often have example sentences.
Yeah.
So you can
see how it's used.
How it's used in context.
Yeah.
But the real key with vocabulary is not just memorizing words in isolation.
Right.
It's about learning new words in context
Yeah.
and then actively using them.
Oh, so like if you learn a new word while you're reading,
Exactly.
try to use it in a conversation.
Exactly. Or try to use it.
Or write it down.
In your writing, yeah. Or even just say it out loud to yourself a few times.
Right, yeah.
Just to get comfortable with it.
Yeah, get it in your brain.
Exactly.
Yeah. What are some other ways we can expand our vocabulary?
Well, one of the things that I like to do is try to find synonyms for words that I already know.
Oh.
So instead of always saying, you know, for example, happy, I might try to think of other words that mean happy, like joyful or cheerful or delighted.
Right, like expand your...
Yeah, expand your range of vocabulary.
Yeah.
And it also helps you to express yourself.
More precise.
More precisely, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And then the sources also talked about just making vocabulary learning fun.
Oh, okay.
So you can create word games.
Oh, like what?
You can do crossword puzzles in English.
Oh.
You can even try writing a short story.
Yeah.
Using as many new words as possible.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Just anything to make it...
To make it fun.
Enjoyable. Yeah. Because the more you enjoy it, the more you'll do it.
The more you'll stick with it.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here.
We have.
Goals, immersion, reading, writing, speaking, listening.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's talk about the one that I think a lot of people get kind of hung up on.
Oh, yeah.
Which is pronunciation.
Pronunciation, yeah. That can be a tricky one.
It can.
And it's understandable because English pronunciation can be kind of crazy with all the different...
All the different accents?
The different accents, yeah.
Yeah. It can be overwhelming.
It can be. But it's important not to let that intimidate you.
So how do we approach pronunciation then?
So one of the first things is just to realize that it's okay to not sound exactly like a native speaker.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like your goal should be to be clear and understandable.
Right.
You don't have to have a perfect American or British accent.
Right, right.
You
It'd be understandable.
Yeah. Just be understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to get so hung up on trying to sound like a native speaker.
Yeah. I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And it can actually kind of hold you back.
Yeah, you're so focused on that.
Exactly.
That you're not actually like...
You're not actually...
leading the conversation.
Exactly. Yeah, so don't worry too much about that. Just focus on being clear and understandable. And there are a lot of great resources out there.
Okay, so what are some of the things...
Oh, it can help you.
Yeah, what are some of the things we can do?
With pronunciation. So one technique that's really effective is called shadowing.
Okay, what's shadowing?
So shadowing is basically listening to a recording of a native speaker and then trying to imitate their pronunciation and intonation.
Oh, so you're like shadow.
You're like their shadow. You're speaking right along with them.
Oh, okay.
And I find that podcasts and audiobooks are really great for this because you can easily like rewind and listen to a section again and again.
Right, right.
Until you really get it.
Until you get it down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about the phonetic alphabet?
Oh, yeah. The International Phonetic Alphabet, or IPA, can be really helpful, too.
Okay.
Learning the IPA can help you understand, like, the mechanics of how English sounds are produced, so you know which part of your mouth you should be using, where your tongue should be, you know, all of that. So,
is that something we can easily find online?
Oh, yeah. You can find tons of resources on the IPA online.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then, of course, you know, there are always the classic tongue twisters.
Oh, yeah, the tongue twisters.
Tongue twisters. Those can be a fun way to practice pronunciation, you know? Things like, she sells seashells by the seashore, or...
Yeah, those are good ones.
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
Those again, yeah.
Yeah. They're tricky.
They are tricky.
But they're a good way to practice those sound combinations.
Yeah, and like train your mouth to make the shapes.
Yeah. It's all about muscle memory.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we've got pronunciation down.
Mm-hmm.
All of this is leading up to
yes,
having actual conversation.
Conversation. Yes, that's the ultimate goal, right?
It is.
Like you can study all the grammar and vocabulary you want,
Yeah.
But until you're actually out there talking to people,
Yeah.
you know, it's not really going to
Right.
click.
Yeah. And I think that's the part that scares a lot of people.
I know. It's scary.
Is that like actually talking to someone?
Yeah.
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 So how do we get over that fear?
So one of the things to remember is that most people are really understanding when they know you're learning English.
Oh, okay.
Like, they're not going to judge you for mistakes.
They're going to be impressed that you're even trying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So just remember that. And I think the more you do it,
Yeah.
the easier it gets.
Yeah. Like anything right.
Exactly.
The more you do it,
Yeah.
the better you'll get at it.
Yeah. I remember the first time I tried to order food in a restaurant in Spain. I was so nervous.
Yeah.
But the waiter was so nice and helpful,
Yeah.
and I managed to get my point across.
Yeah.
And it felt amazing,
Yeah.
you know? So just remember that people are generally really supportive. So don't be afraid to just jump in and start talking.
Yeah, just go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so how can we find people to talk to?
Yeah.
Like if we're at home.
So the sources talked about a few different things.
Okay.
Language exchange programs are a great option.
Oh, okay. What are those?
So language exchange programs are basically programs where you can connect with people from all over the world who are also learning English.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So you can like...
And you can help each other.
You help each other. Exactly. So you can practice your English with them.
And they can practice their native language with you.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Yeah. And there are tons of online platforms and apps that are specifically designed for language exchange.
Okay. And then what if we just have like friends or family who speak English?
Yeah. If you have any friends, colleagues, family members who speak English, don't be afraid to ask them if they would be willing to chat with you in English.
Right? Yeah.
Even just for like 15 minutes or half an hour a week. That can make a big difference.
Can. Yeah. Just having those conversations. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about
lots of
tons of things.
Yeah.
And the big takeaway is that practice makes perfect.
Practice makes perfect. Consistency is key.
Yeah.
You know, and it's easy to get excited at the beginning when you're learning a language and you're like, I'm going to do this every day.
Right. And then life gets in the way.
And then life gets in the way.
Yeah.
And you're tired and you don't feel like it.
Right. Or you're busy. Or...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But the key is to really try to make it a habit.
Right. So how can we build that habit?
So one of the things that you can do is to create a schedule. And stick to it.
Okay.
So like block out specific times in your week for English practice.
Put it on your calendar.
Put it on your calendar like you would for any other important appointment.
Right.
Yeah. And then another thing that can be really helpful is to track your progress.
Okay, so like how do we track our progress?
So you can keep a notebook or a digital document where you just jot down, you know, new words you've learned, grammar concepts you've mastered.
Okay.
Maybe like milestones you've achieved.
Like, oh, I had my first conversation with my friend.
Yeah.
Things like that.
And it's just a good way to kind of like look back and see
how far you've come.
How far you've come, yeah. And it can be really motivating
right.
on those days when you're feeling a little discouraged.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And remember, this is a journey, not a sprint. Right.
Exactly. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
It takes time.
You're not going to learn everything overnight.
No. It's a process. And there will be days when you feel like you're making great progress, and there will be days when you feel like you're not making any progress at all.
Right.
But the key is to just keep going.
Yeah, just keep going.
Keep practicing. And
don't give up.
Don't give up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to remember that there's no one right way to learn a language.
Oh.
So, you know, what works for one person might not work for another person.
Right.
So don't be afraid to experiment, try different things, and find what works best for you.
Right. Like find what you enjoy and just run with it.
Yeah. And have fun.
Yeah.
Because if it's fun, you'll do it. Exactly. If it's fun, you'll keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so pronunciation.
We covered a lot.
Yeah. And we've talked about how to practice conversation, even if we don't have anyone to talk to.
Exactly.
So now let's get into the nitty-gritty of conversation.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So we've talked about how important conversation is for actually becoming fluent in English.
Right.
But I know that the thought of actually like having a conversation with a native English speaker can be terrifying.
It can be. Especially if you're not confident.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, you're so worried about making mistakes. You're
Yeah.
worried about what they're going to think of you.
Right.
But honestly, most people are incredibly understanding and patient when they know that you're learning.
Right.
Like, they're more likely to be impressed by your effort than they are to be intimidated by any mistakes you might make.
Yeah. I think that's true.
Yeah. So don't let that fear hold you back.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, just go for it.
Go for it.
Yeah. Okay, so what are some of the things that we can do?
So the sources talked about some great ways to find conversation partners. So one thing that they mentioned was language exchange programs.
Okay, and those are basically...
Language exchange programs are basically programs where you can connect with people from all over the world who are also learning English.
Okay, so
you can help each other.
Right.
So you can practice your English with them, and they can practice their native language with you.
Right.
So it's kind of a win-win.
Yeah.
And there are tons of online platforms and apps that are specifically designed for language exchange.
Yeah. And I guess, too, if we have, like, English-speaking friends or family.
Yeah, absolutely.
We could just ask.
Yeah, if you have any friends or colleagues or family members who speak English, don't be afraid to ask them if they'd be willing to chat with you in English.
Yeah, just like even for a little bit.
Yeah, even just for like 15 minutes or half an hour a week.
Right.
It can make a big difference.
Yeah, just get that practice in.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, cool. So we've talked about finding people to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think another important thing is just like staying consistent.
Oh, yeah. Consistency is so important.
Because it's easy to get started. You're like, oh, I'm going to learn English.
Yeah, you're all motivated.
And then life
happens.
Yeah.
Life happens. Yeah. So how do we stay consistent with it?
So one of the things that the sources really emphasized was creating a schedule and sticking to it.
Okay. So like blocking out time on our calendar.
Yeah, exactly. Block out specific times in your week for English practice, like you would for any other important appointment.
Right. And treat it with that same level of importance.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then like how do we...
And then another thing that can be really helpful is to track your progress.
Oh, okay. So how do we do that?
So you can keep a notebook or like a digital document where you just jot down, you know, new words you've learned, grammar concepts that you've mastered, maybe like milestones you've achieved.
Like I had my first conversation.
Exactly. Things like that. And it's just a good way to kind of look back.
Right. And see how far you've come.
Yeah. And it can be really motivating.
Yeah.
On those days when you're feeling a little discouraged.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like we said, this is a journey, not...
Exactly. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
It takes time. And there will be days when you feel like you're making great progress, and there will be days where you feel like you're not making any progress at all.
Right.
But the key is to just keep going.
Keep pushing.
Keep practicing. And don't give up.
Yeah, don't give up.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to remember that there's no one right way to learn a language.
No.
So what works for one person might not work for another person.
Right.
So don't be afraid to experiment.
Oh, okay.
Try different things.
Yeah.
And find what works best for you.
Right. Find what you enjoy. Just go with it.
Yeah. And have fun with it.
It's
because
fun.
Exactly. If it's fun, you're more likely to stick with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But I think the one thing...
The big takeaway.
That really matters at the end of the day is that you just have to...
You just have to do it.
Do it.
Yeah. You have to get out there and you have to start speaking.
Yeah, just start speaking. Like, don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Like, everybody makes mistakes.
It's part of the process.
It is.
Yeah.
And honestly, most people are going to be really impressed that you're even trying.
That you're putting in the effort.
Exactly.
So just remember that.
Okay. So what are some of the things we can do to actually practice?
So the sources talked about a few different things you can do to get that conversation practice.
Okay.
So one thing that they mentioned was language exchange programs.
Oh, language exchange. So those are basically...
Yeah, language exchange programs are programs where you can connect with people from all over the world who are also learning English.
Cool. So you can like...
And you can help each other.
Yeah.
So you can practice your English with them and they can practice their native language with you.
Right. So it's kind of like a win-win.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there are tons of online platforms and apps.
So that sort of thing.
Yeah, that are specifically designed for language exchange.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So you can find someone who's, you know, at a similar level.
Exactly. And who has similar interests.
Yeah.
So you can actually like have a conversation
Right.
that you're both interested in.
Right. It's not just like reading from a textbook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And don't forget about the resources that you might already have.
Right.
You know, if you have any English-speaking friends or colleagues or family members, don't be afraid to ask them if they would be willing to chat with you in English.
Yeah, just like even casually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe just for like 15 minutes or half an hour a week.
Right.
It can make a big difference.
Just to get that practice in.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So as we wrap up this deep dive here.
Yes.
What is one thing that our listeners can do today to like...
Yes. What's one action you can take this week?
To just improve their English.
To improve your English.
Yeah.
Whether it's, you know, trying out one of those language exchange programs or changing the language on your phone.
Or just like writing down 5 new words.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anything. Just pick one thing and do it this week.
Make it a goal.
Make it a goal.
Yeah. And I think that's great advice for anything.
Oh, for sure. You know, if you want to make progress on something,
break it down.
Break it down into small steps.
And just take action.
And just take action, yeah. All right. Well, this has been awesome.
This was fun.
It has been. We've covered a lot of really useful information.
Lots of good stuff.
I feel like I even learned a few things.
Me too.
So, yeah. So, for everyone listening, thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for joining us.
And keep practicing that English.
Keep practicing.